The Drade representative, Supreme Commander Rutel, rose from his seat, bioluminescent patches flaring. Those accusations were never proven. "Oh, sit down, Rexu," I snapped. We all saw the footage. Humans had terraformed 3 planets in that sector, invested 60 cycles of work, built cities, established farms. Then suddenly, your survey ships discover critically endangered crystal breathers in that exact sector. Please. The chamber erupted in angry shouts and accusations. I let them rage for a moment before triggering the sonic dampeners in my section. In the artificial quiet, I accessed more records. But the scientific censorship, I continued, once they'd settled, was our master. A piece of diplomatic idiocy. When humans developed their first functional quantum consciousness transfer system, what did we do? The Science Council, in its infinite wisdom, declared it too dangerous for an immature species and demanded they abandon the research. High Chancellor Vexa's scales shifted to a deep blue of remembered shame. The technology had significant risks. The technology worked, I shouted, my throat sacs fully inflated. It worked better than anything our species had developed. But instead of collaboration, we chose suppression. When Dr. Elena Martinez refused to destroy her research, the Science Council sent in enforcement units. 10 human scientists died in the raid. The newer council members looked shocked. This part usually got glossed over in the official histories. The humans went quiet after that, I said, my voice softening. Too quiet. They accepted our restrictions, followed our rules, smiled during diplomatic functions. But if any of you had bothered to really look, I gestured at the holographic displays showing human space. Their shipping manifests never quite matched their production numbers. Their energy consumption was always slightly higher than reported. Their colonies kept growing despite the restrictions. Trade Minister Zill recovered from her fainting spell and raised a crystalline appendage. "Are you suggesting they've been systematically deceiving us?" "No," I replied, sinking back into my hover seat. "I'm stating it as fact. Humans have a saying, hope for the best, plan for the worst. For 300 cycles we've given them nothing but the worst, and I guarantee you they've been planning accordingly." The chamber fell silent again as the implications sank in. All those years of restrictions, vetoes, and suppression, we thought we were containing a potentially dangerous species. Instead, we were just giving them time to prepare, time to build, time to plan. And now, with the ashes of New Montana still cooling, we'd finally pushed them past their breaking point. The holographic display in the center of the council chamber flickered to life, showing the ruins of New Montana. Even now, 3 days after the Drachnid attack, fires still burned across the continent-spanning wheat fields. The massive agricultural domes lay shattered, their broken shells scattered across the landscape like the bones of ancient creatures. "Play the footage," I demanded, my voice rough with emotion. Most of my colleagues flinched. They knew what was coming. The recording began. New Montana's orbital defense platforms hung silent in space, powered down as required by concordant law. The Drade fleet dropped out of hyperspace, 47 capital ships strong. No warning, no demands, just immediate, overwhelming force. "Stop!" Supreme Commander Rutil protested. "We all know what happened," I snarled. "No!" I cut him off. "You will watch. You will all watch." The Drade ships opened fire, their energy weapons carving molten scars across the planet's surface. Kinetic bombardment rounds punched through the atmospheric shields, striking cities with the force of small nuclear weapons. 7 million humans died in the first hour, but that wasn't what broke us. What broke us was the agricultural domes. "Notice," I said, highlighting specific ships in the display, how the Drade fleet specifically targeted food production facilities. Not military installations, not industrial centers. They deliberately destroyed the means to feed a population. The recording continued. Emergency beacons lit up the night side of the planet as civilian ships tried to escape. The Drachnid fleet methodically shot them down, not all of them, just enough to prove they could, just enough to send a message. 17 hours, I continued, my throat sacs constricting with barely contained rage. For 17 hours, human ships across 3 sectors received distress calls from New Montana, calls we were legally forbidden from answering due to the concordant quarantine protocols. High Chancellor Vaxos raised all 4 hands. The protocols exist to prevent conflict escalation. The protocols, I cut him off, exist to protect aggressors like the Drade from consequences. But here's what you all seem to have missed. The humans obeyed those protocols for 17 hours while their people died. They obeyed your laws. I switched the display to current sensor readings. Then, exactly 18 hours after the first shot was fired, every human military vessel in known space activated previously unknown drive systems and vanished. The chamber erupted in concerned murmurs. Ambassador PX antennae twitched nervously. Vanished? Where? That's the interesting part, I replied, unable to keep a note of dark admiration from my voice. According to our best sensor data, they didn't go anywhere. They just stopped being detectable. 5,000 ships, just gone like they'd never existed. Trade Minister Zill's crystalline form vibrated with anxiety. Impossible! Our detection systems are being jammed by technology we didn't know existed. I finished for her. Just like we didn't know about their fleet's true capabilities, just like we didn't know about their actual industrial capacity, just like we didn't know about the massive military installation buried 2 kilometers under New Montana's surface. That got their attention. I triggered another holographic display, this one showing deep scan readings of New Montana taken just before all our sensor platforms in the system mysteriously failed. See that? I pointed to a massive structure beneath the planet's crust. While we were all busy congratulating ourselves on keeping humanity contained, they built a fortress under our noses, one that survived the bombardment, one that, according to our last readings, was launching ships. But that's not the worst part, I continued, saving my biggest revelation for last. The worst part is what happened 6 hours ago. Would anyone like to guess? Silence filled the chamber. I let it stretch, watching my colleagues squirm. Every human in known space disappeared. Not just military personnel. Every human. Trading posts, diplomatic missions, research stations, civilian contractors, all empty. 3 billion humans across 700 systems, gone in an instant. The implications hit the Council like a plasma blast. High Chancellor Vaxos' scales turned almost white. That's not possible. The energy requirements alone, quantum consciousness transfer, I said quietly. Remember that technology we forced them to abandon? Turns out they didn't abandon it. They perfected it. And now we have no idea where humanity's population has gone, where their fleet is, or what they're planning. I stood up, looking each council member in their various sensory organs. But we do know one thing. In the last transmission from New Montana, before the Drade fleet opened fire, Governor Chen said something to her people. The humans have been kind enough to let us keep that recording. I played the clip. Governor Chen's voice, calm despite the approaching fleet, filled the chamber. Remember the Alamo? None of our xeno-historians could explain the reference, I said, watching comprehension dawn on my colleagues' faces. Until now, it's from human military history. It means they're about to make someone pay dearly for a mistake. The chamber's emergency alerts chose that moment to start blaring. Reports flooded in from across known space. Human ships appearing out of nowhere, strategic targets hit with surgical precision, and one message broadcast on all frequencies. Humanity thanks the Galactic Concordate for its patience. Now please sit back and observe how warfare should be conducted." The Council chamber emergency alerts wouldn't stop screaming. Red warning holograms filled the air as reports poured in from across Concordate space. Supreme Commander RX Sutil kept barking orders into his neural link, his bioluminescent patches pulsing with increasing panic. "Drade Fleet Base Omega-7, gone, just gone!" His voice cracked. 300 ships, 50,000 personnel. The humans hit it with some kind of weapon that turned everything within a 50-kilometer radius into elementary particles. I finished for him, checking my own updates. Yes, they call it the Manhattan Protocol. Apparently, they've had that particular surprise waiting for 3 decades. The Drade commander's facial tentacles writhed in distress. "But our shields can't stop a weapon that changes the fundamental forces holding matter together," I interrupted, not bothering to hide my satisfaction. "Really makes you wonder what else they developed while pretending to follow our technology restrictions, doesn't it?" High Chancellor Vexator's scales had turned an interesting shade of grey I'd never seen before. "The combined fleet is mobilizing. We have numerical superiority. We have a new alert." I cut him off. The massive holographic display showed the Drade home system, or rather, what was left of it. The mighty defense ring of 50,000 automated weapons platforms, now floating debris. The supposedly impregnable planetary shield disabled by a computer virus that somehow bypassed every security measure. "Oh, look," I commented dryly. "Humanity remembered your tricks from the Beta Carina incident. How thoughtful of them to return the favor." Ambassador P's mandibles clacked rapidly. "But the human fleet can't possibly... They don't have the numbers to be everywhere at once?" I brought up another tactical display. "They don't need to be. See these patterns. Classic human military doctrine. Vertical envelopment, tactical mobility, force multiplication. They're not trying to hold territory. They're destroying strategic targets and disappearing before we can respond." The chamber shook. Not a simulation this time, a real impact. I checked the external cameras. The commercial world's prize defense fleet was engaging 3 human warships directly above the council chamber. The humans were winning. "Fascinating," I mused, watching the battle. Their ships are using maneuvers that should tear them apart. The energy readings are off the charts. It's like they're not bound by the same laws of physics we are. "Impossible." Trade Minister Zill's crystalline form resonated with fear. "Our scientists assured us that humans couldn't possibly advance beyond our technological level." I laughed. "Did it ever occur to you that they let us think that? That every advancement they showed us was carefully calculated to keep us complacent?" Another explosion lit up space above us. One of the human ships had just copied itself. Then both copies copied themselves. The commercial world's fleet was now facing 12 identical warships instead of 3. "Quantum duplication," I explained to my stunned colleagues. "Another technology we told them was too dangerous to develop. I'm starting to sense a pattern here." Supreme Commander Rutel suddenly went rigid, his neural link buzzing with priority transmissions. "The human fleet," his voice failed. "Let me guess," I said, checking my own updates. "They just appeared in every major system simultaneously, military bases, shipyards, command centers, all under attack at the exact same moment." The council chamber fell silent, except for the wail of alarms and the distant sound of battles. I stood up, straightening my diplomatic robes. "You know what the really interesting part is?" I looked around at my terrified colleagues. "They're being selective, precise. Only military targets, only species that supported the Drades. They're not even blocking civilian traffic." High Chancellor Vexor found his voice. "They're showing restraint." "No," I corrected him. "They're showing us exactly how much restraint they've been practicing for the past 300 cycles. and what happens when that restraint finally runs out. The next 6 hours in the council chamber felt like watching a masterclass in warfare. Trade Minister Zill had shattered herself in panic an hour ago when the humans broadcast their next message, not with weapons or threats, but with music. "What is this noise?" Supreme Commander Rutil demanded, his tentacles curling in agitation. "Flight of the Valkyries," I answered, recognizing the ancient human battle song. "They're broadcasting it on all frequencies while they dismantle our fleets. Apparently, they have a sense of humor." The tactical displays told a story that none of us wanted to read. The proud Drachnid armada reduced to scattering like prey animals. The commerce world's defense grid turned against their own ships by human cyber warfare. The hive cluster's mighty spawning fleets now drifting in space, their crews seemingly asleep. How Ambassador PX's mandibles wouldn't stop twitching. "How are they predicting our every move?" I pulled up another report, laughing despite myself. Remember all those human servants in our diplomatic corps? The ones we thought were just cheap labor. Turns out they've been cataloging our military response patterns for generations. The chamber rocked again as another battle unfolded nearby. This time, I noticed something odd about the human tactics. "They're hurting us," I realized, watching the pattern emerge. Every retreat route leads to a prepared ambush. They mapped out this entire campaign before firing the first shot. High Chancellor Vexa had settled into a permanent shade of grey. The combined fleet is reporting strange malfunctions, ships shutting down, weapons failing. "Quantum virus," I explained, reviewing the data. "They infected our networks years ago, laying dormant, gathering data, waiting for the signal. When New Montana burned, they activated their trap." Another alert. This time, a message appeared on every screen in the chamber. Simple text, no audio. "Check your calendars." The confusion lasted only moments before understanding hit. Today's date on the human calendar, April 1st. April Fool's Day. They timed their revenge to coincide with their ancient holiday of pranks and tricks. "These humans," Rex muttered. "They turned war into theater." "No," I corrected him. "They turned your slaughter of their people into a lesson. Look at the battle footage. Every human ship broadcasts their target's crimes before attacking. They're not just winning, they're documenting their justice." The displays showed more human ships appearing from nowhere, using tactics that defied conventional physics. Some phased through solid matter, others manipulated time itself, arriving at their targets before they launched their attacks. "That's impossible," one of the junior ambassadors whispered. "The energy requirements alone. They solved cold fusion 40 cycles ago," I revealed, enjoying the shocked gasps. "Kept that quiet too, along with quantum tunneling, temporal mechanics, and about a dozen other technologies we thought were theoretical." A new tactical assessment flashed across my neural link. The Drade home fleet, the pride of their empire, had just surrendered unconditionally. The commerce world's defense forces followed suit minutes later. The dominoes were falling exactly as humanity planned. "You know what's truly terrifying?" I asked the stunned council. "This isn't even their full force. Long-range scans suggest most of their fleet is still waiting in whatever pocket dimension they've been hiding in." Supreme Commander Rutil slumped in his hover seat. "How long have they been planning this?" "Since the first trade restriction," I said quietly. "Every insult, every restriction, every diplomatic slight, they remembered them all, built their response one piece at a time, created redundancies we never imagined." The chamber's main screen lit up with a new message from the human fleet, this time accompanied by another Earth song, something called the Imperial March. "We're not going to win this, are we?" High Chancellor Vexa asked, his voice barely a whisper. I shook my head. Chancellor, we lost this war 300 cycles ago. We just didn't know it until today. 1 month after what humans now call April Fool's War, I stood in the rebuilt council chamber. The changes were impossible to miss. The Drachnid seats sat empty, their empire now under human oversight. The Commerce World section had been reduced to a single chair, and in the center, where the High Chancellor's platform once floated, stood a simple wooden podium. Admiral Mia Rodriguez stepped up to that podium, her dress uniform gleaming under the starlight. No weapons, no guards, just quiet confidence. "The terms are non-negotiable," she announced, her voice carrying that peculiar human mix of warmth and steel. "But they are, we think, fair." I watched my fellow ambassadors as she outlined humanity's demands. No more technology restrictions, no more artificial trade barriers, no more interference with human expansion. Simple terms that would have prevented this whole disaster if we'd offered them 3 centuries ago. "You're not demanding reparations?" Trade Minister Zill asked, her crystalline form still showing stress fractures from her earlier shattering. Admiral Rodriguez smiled, not the diplomatic smile we were used to from humans, a real one. "Your functioning economies serve our interests better than your bankrupted ones. We're not here for revenge, we're here for change." Supreme Commander Rutil, now the last of the dried High Command, raised his tentacles. "And our military forces will be limited to defensive capabilities only?" Rodriguez replied. "You can keep your patrol fleets, but the next species that launches an unprovoked attack will find their entire military infrastructure turned into a quantum physics experiment. Again." I couldn't help but notice how the Admiral's hand briefly touched a small medal on her chest, the new Montana Service Cross. She'd lost family there, I realized, yet here she stood, offering peace. "There is one more thing," Rodriguez continued, triggering a holographic display. "We're establishing a new research initiative, open to all species. No restrictions, no censorship, pure science, pure cooperation." The chamber buzzed with surprised murmurs. High Chancellor Vex's scales shifted to a cautious green. "You would share your advanced technology?" "No," Rodriguez shook her head. "We're offering you the chance to develop it yourselves, with guidance. Think of it as a galactic scholarship program." I understood then what humanity had planned. They weren't creating an empire, they were building a school. "The universe is bigger than our petty power games," Rodriguez continued. "There are threats out there that will require all of us working together. Real threats, the kind that make our recent unpleasantness look like a children's game." She gestured to the stars visible through the chamber's crystal walls. "Humanity didn't develop all this technology just to win a war. We developed it because we looked into the dark between stars and saw things coming. Things that should scare you a lot more than we do." The chamber fell silent. I noticed how every ambassador suddenly found themselves staring into space.